All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. And this is a special edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. I am privileged to once again have Cal One to God with me. Cal, how's it going, man?
I'm good, William. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear. You are all set over the airways, my good man.
So thanks for
And
having me.
no problem. Pleasure to have you. And also, before we get started, I love what you're doing right there. Throwback to the San Diego Chargers
Oh
because
yeah, who no
I
longer exists.
I still
That's right.
think they are like, trust me, I still have to catch myself calling them the San Diego Chargers and also, referring to the Raiders as the Oakland Raiders. I have to catch myself
Right. Yeah, yeah. We still
periodically
doing it. Yeah.
from time to time on that. But I want to talk about and get your thoughts on this as well, because recently
Mhm.
reports have surfaced that Golden State Warriors forward Draymond Green is receiving a max extension. Now, Green has 1 year left on his current deal, and it's going to pay him close to $26 million for the upcoming NBA season, while he also has a
Right.
player option for the following year that's going to pay him close to 27.5 million. Green is 32 years of age, but should the Warriors, and not just the Warriors, or any other team out there be willing to give him max money at this point in his career?
Well, let's take a look at what he's done. He's been an all-star 4 times. He's won 4 rings as a player. He led the league in steals, defensive player of the year. I think he's been to 7 All NBA defensive teams. I think the most he scored in any given season might have been about 14 points a game. His value isn't in what you actually see on the stat sheet. His value, it comes in that locker room. He's able to keep everybody grounded, keep them together. And when we're talking about swinging the basketball and having everybody in their places and being able to set up with the pieces that he has, guess what, people? There is no Stephen Curry doing the things he's doing if Draymond don't set him up. There is no Klay Thompson. We talking about screen roles. Who is giving the screen? All right, who's guarding the other team's best player? Draymond is valuable, and I think I could see William Golden State sign him to a max because we don't know how long these guys are going to be. They're 32 and 33 years old now, so they might have another 3 to 4 year window. I could see them signing him to the max, which he should, and then maybe getting traded. What do you think about it? Because I mean, he's invaluable to what he does.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to disagree with anything that you said because, Draymond is not a big stat guy, theoretically. You're talking about a guy that has averaged 8.7 points, 6.9 rebounds, 5.4 assists, and 1.4 steals for
Right.
his entire NBA career. But it's a situation where he's not a big stat guy, but he's still the linchpin to what the Warriors do because if you go back to when this warrior thing got started first, when Mark Jackson was still the head coach. One of the big
Right.
beefs between Mark Jackson and Jerry West, who was an advisor with the organization at the time, was that Jerry West saw the talent that Draymond Green had. Mark Jackson had Draymond Green on the bench, and Jerry West felt that Draymond should have been starting. And then, of course, Steve Kerr takes over when Mark Jackson is relieved of his duties. One of the first things that Steve Kerr does is implement Draymond Green into the starting lineup. And of course, that from that season on, things really changed for the Warriors. They were a playoff team before that,
Correct.
but
That's
now you
correct.
put Draymond in
Right.
that starting rotation, and now all of a sudden you're not just a playoff team, you're a championship contender. And obviously the proof is in the pudding, to your point. 4 NBA championships. The Warriors have been to the NBA finals 6 times over that stretch. And then, yeah, they've aged a little bit, but to the front office's credit, they still have good pieces
Right.
around their core. You bring in a Jordan Poole, you bring
Mhm.
in a Kaminga, you bring in a Kevon Looney. These guys, are just adding more depth to what the Warriors have been able to do. So it's one of those where with
Right.
Draymond Green, you know, it's going to be one of those where the Warriors, I think they're probably just going to be forced to pay him the money.
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's a good
You're
investment for
hold
them
up.
because at the end of the day,
You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit.
all right, hang on.
Okay. Much
How about now?
much better.
Thank you, brother. All right, let me say this to you. They're better off paying them because what people don't seem to realize or understand is that the Warriors are not an ISO team. The Warriors, they beat you through ball movement, getting the ball up the court quickly. They're not really a half court team. They just get the ball to the best player to get the best shot. So that means they're not going to go and have two guys, on both sides of the ring down in the post, swinging in a triangle and see who's going to get that shot. No, they're working off their strengths, which is their shooters. All right, and coming out, who's going to set that screen? Who's going to set that pick? And getting back on defense, because one thing about the Warriors, people say, okay, yeah, the Warriors, they went to 6 chips. Yo, they were always like the second or third best team on defense every time they won. And so I think a couple of times they were even first. So you don't win as many games as they've won without playing defense. And to his credit, Draymond is that guy. He takes everybody's best player. He take him out of the game. He even lost the championship. They should have had 5 chips right now. He lost one himself by getting knocked out of the game. But he also sacrificed himself too. And when the Warriors were hurt, it wasn't that he needed when Steph and all of them was hurt, Clay they all was hurt, and it was just him. It wasn't that they needed him or he needed them. They all needed each other to be successful. This is what a lot of people don't understand. The best ISO player they got is Wiggins, is Andrew Wiggins. He's the best ISO player they have, and on any given day, he can give you 30, 40 points. He's just not going to shoot you down from 3-point and give you 30, 40 points. Also, another thing Draymond does is he puts five 3-point shooters on the floor that can actually shoot the three and hit the threes in rhythm and blow you out. I ain't got nothing else to say about it. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
It's one of those where it's kind of like the Dennis Johnson effect with the Boston Celtics. And I say that because, Dennis Johnson did end up getting into the Basketball Hall of Fame. All right. But, you think about, those Celtics teams of the 1980s. And yeah, granted, Dennis Johnson was not there for the first championship in '81.
Right.
That was Tiny Archibald as a point guard. And, I'm saying this from the standpoint that unlike Draymond Green, Dennis Johnson did have a past life in the NBA with both the Phoenix Suns and Seattle Supersonics.
That's a fact.
He was an all-star caliber player. And on top of that, he helped the Sonics win their only championship
He sure did.
in '79. I'm just comparing the two
I
from the
remember.
standpoint that, what, Dennis Johnson, granted, I know he did end up in the Basketball Hall of Fame, following his, unfortunate death. But it was one of those that I always felt like he was one of those guys that was overlooked on Bird Celtics in the 1980s. And it was easy to do it because you had Larry Bird, you had Kevin McHale, you had Robert Parrish. But, sometimes you need those guys that are going to do the dirty work. Another
Right.
guy from those Celtics championship teams in the '80s, Cornbread Maxwell. Of course, he did end up being Finals MVP in '81.
He did.
But Cornbread was a guy that you kind of overlooked a little bit, and then they did eventually trade him for an aging Bill Walton, obviously, and they were able to get another championship out of it. But my point is, you need those linchpin guys.
Glue guys. You need
Right.
them. Yeah.
And the thing is, to your point, Steph and Clay are not Steph and Clay without Draymond. And I will say this: Draymond is going to get paid, and he's going to get paid by the Warriors. And you think about, what you have with this team. Of course, Joe Lacob, the majority owner, Bob Myers, the general manager.
Right.
And the thing is, they've taken care of Steph, they've taken care of Clay, and this was a team, mind you, they gave Clay that money right after Clay blew out his knee
They sure did.
in the NBA Finals, and they
Mhm.
paid him all of this time to rehab. They were willing to do the same thing for Kevin Durant as well when he got hurt in the 2019 Finals as well. And of course,
Right.
KD decided to go to Brooklyn. That's a whole nother story for another day. But nonetheless, you figure, Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, the owners of the Warriors, There are two guys that have said, you know what, the heck with the luxury tax. They've moved over from Oakland to San Francisco. There's more money there. They have the new arena. Fans, are consistently supporting this team. It's a consistent sellout between the fans in the Bay Area. And, the Bay Area for sports as a whole, they love their teams, regardless
That's a
if it's
fact.
the Giants when the Raiders played there,
That's a fact.
the Niners, the Warriors. Listen, they come out hard for their teams, and right now they know that they're witnessing something special, and I think that the Warriors take care of them because it's one of those where. First and foremost, Golden State has a good opportunity, not a great opportunity, but a good opportunity to come back and possibly repeat this coming season. But you're also going to look at it and say, you know what? Maybe we could squeeze a couple of more title runs out of this crew. So, if you're the front office for the Warriors, I think you go out there and get this done.
Well, to me, again, as I said a little earlier, since we've been talking, it's a no-brainer. I mean, like Draymond is a glue guy. I would even put him. People think that Robert Horry, because he got the 7 rings, he was a positional guy. He wasn't a glue guy. He was a positional guy. And then when he started becoming a 6 man, because originally he was a starter, I believe, over in Houston.
Right, he was.
Right, he was a starter, but he wasn't your first, second, or third option. And he learned how to shoot the three after a while. And he was one of the first 6'10", 6'11" guys I've seen. And that was this, especially getting up off the bench to come in and shoot the three. And he was part of some chips. And that way, when we talking about glue, when I think glue, I think Scottie Pippen. Right? Those don't get no chips without Scottie doing a little bit of everything. He could shoot the three. That wasn't his thing. Forget about it in the open court. He could pass the rock. He could make a free throw. He could defend. But I think early on in his career, it was more of a mind thing. Draymond battles the mind thing, but when he gets on the court, he's trying to help his team win a game. He's not going to say, look, Steve Kerr, I don't want to go in a game. He's like, oh, give it more to me. I want to eat everybody's food. I want to do everything. You need guys like that on your team. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying he doesn't, say what he says. Sometimes the timing might not be the best, or he might, some of the fouls he committed. I don't even look at him as a tough guy. I look at him as a glue guy and somebody that you need. Your organization has to have that type of person. He's not somebody that guys were afraid of, like say a Vernon Maxwell. All right. People were scared of Vernon Maxwell. All right. But Draymond, on the other hand, it's almost comical what he does. And if you let him get into your head and they start moving that ball, the game is over. I honestly felt like the championship from last year should have been over in 4 to 5 games. People was like, oh, well, they took them 6. That shows how good, No, it didn't. They should have took them out. They should have won that first game. I'll give them that. But to me, the Warriors, as long as they, continue to get a little bit younger at certain positions and, develop the players that they have, Draymond is somebody that you want in your locker room. You want him teaching these kids and these guys about what they should do. He's not saying, look, come be like me. Do your part, bring what you bring to the table. And that's invaluable in today's NBA.
Yeah, listen, I think, it's one of those where he has a lot of intangibles. For me, I think that he gets away with a lot of stuff that he does right now because he plays in today's current era of the NBA. I really think if Draymond played 25, 30 years ago, it would have taken like 1 or 2 dudes to pop him in the mouth. And, a lot of the stuff that he does would have been quieted down. But it's just the fact that, the NBA has quote unquote eliminated the tough guys from the NBA for the most part. Guys are not willing to fight. For a lot of reasons. Obviously, they don't want to lose the money. Obviously the social media realm that's
Oh,
open
forget about
now
it.
because people that's all they're gonna talk about. Even like you hear it now in sports, it's like, oh, massive brawl, and then you click on the feed and it's just like
Not even, it's nothing.
it's like a whole bunch of guys jawing. So like what would actually happen if there was, something like how we used to see, in the 1980s consistently with the Detroit Pistons, but
Every game was a fight.
right,
Every
but
game.
right, but getting back to Draymond, it's just the fact that he's able to do it because of the current era of basketball that he plays in. But still, at the end of the day, he's just very valuable to what they do, and it's one of those situations. Sometimes you don't appreciate what you have until you let it go. And in this situation, I just don't see the Warriors front office and their ownership just willing to let him go just for the simple fact that they've already said the heck with the luxury tax.
Right.
So why are you going to all of a sudden stop now? This is not a Dan Gilbert situation where the Cavs won the championship in 2016 and Dan Gilbert was still complaining about having to pay the luxury tax. Dan Gilbert actually complained more about having to pay the luxury tax than he did winning an NBA championship. Warriors organization totally different. So I think at the end of the day, he might not get a max deal, but I think when it's all said and done, he's going to get paid handsomely. And just to that point, I think one thing that's really affecting the situation. Look at what Draymond has accomplished. 4 NBA championships, vital to this team. And you have guys in the NBA right now getting paid stupid money
Right.
for, not doing anything. I mean,
Nothing.
it's like you
Basically
you have
nothing.
you have guys that what, they get to the play-in tournament and all of a sudden, oh, I want a max deal. For what? You haven't done anything. And
Mm-mm.
like, here you have a guy who has accomplished some stuff. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, people will remember his name. And at the end of the day, he just wants to be taken care of.
I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, to me, the way the money is being thrown around, a lot of money's been thrown around based on potential. It's not what you're doing. You might have had a couple of 30-point games. Might have did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But a lot of these guys are flash in the pan. A lot of these top draft picks over the last few years have not panned out. They have not panned out. But it's like, okay, if you let him go and somebody else get him and he becomes what you thought he was, then the scrutiny you're going to get, woo, woo. It's like, and I think a lot of the teams in different sports, they give in to the potential of their star players as opposed to sitting down and breaking down what they actually did, what you really think they could do, as opposed to feeling the pressure from the public to re-sign this guy or give this guy a max contract. And, when you look at everything across the table, it doesn't add up. But so I think the media scrutiny and the social media is forcing a lot of different moves that I don't think would have been made otherwise. Like, I'm not saying Zion Williamson isn't worth the money, but he's only played 85 games in what, 3 years?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're thinking that means he played one season in what, 3 games
Yeah.
in 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words on it, but hey, get your money. I ain't knocking nobody.
And that's fresh off of missing, the entire season, this past year. Granted, I do feel that Zion, would have been able to play at some point, but the organization did hold him back towards the end of the year. But, that again, that's another topic for another day. But,
Absolutely.
it does coincide, into what we're saying because, guys are getting, stupid money right now. And they really have not, they've accomplished great individual stuff, but the stats are deceiving because they're playing on bad teams. It's like, okay, you're dropping 25 a night, that's fine, but you're struggling to get to the play-in tournament, and in some cases you can't even get to the play-in tournament. And okay, well, you know what? Give me my check for 35-40 million dollars, if not more. And it's just ridiculous.
I'm gonna agree 100%. But going back to Draymond, you know, I like the dude, and what he does for that team. Somebody said to me in a post on, I think, Facebook, they said, take Draymond off that team. What does he do on another team? I said, probably nothing. You know what I'm saying? Or next to nothing, or not enough to keep him on the court and start him. No, you wouldn't do that. He would be at this point, without what is he, 32 or something like that now?
32.
He would be considered the OG veteran sitting on the bench. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
See Taj Gibson. Taj Gibson left the Knicks and what did he sign for, like 3 million or something somewhere?
Yeah.
So that's what Draymond would be getting if he wasn't in that situation that he's in with the Warriors right now. But you got to remember, people got to remember, they look, they look at the flash in the pan, which is the threes, and you gotta watch if you played any kind of basketball. People, you gotta watch what happens before they get there to do that. How this guy is setting up the court with how he's passing the ball. And if he led the league in steals, that means he's setting his guys up all over the place. He's creating defensive pressure so somebody else could steal the ball. This is setting them up, and they're getting back on defense. So it's not just you see them with all these shots. It just look like they're just taking a lot of shots. No, this is what they practice. This is systematic basketball at its finest. All right. And I told people this a long time ago. You don't win this many chips this soon, especially if there wasn't a system in place. You look at the coach. The coach came from Steve Kerr, systematic basketball, San Antonio, Chicago, systematic basketball, and he got 4 rings. He wasn't a glue guy, but that's a shooter. That's somebody you got to have on your bench so that when you got to open up the game, he has to make that shot. That's his job. And so he believed in systematic basketball, and he implemented it there in Golden State. I'm not saying that Mark Jackson didn't have his system or what he was doing. Two totally different coaches, two totally different people. And I believe whatever it was that Steve Kerr put in place, because even when he went out, I think something happened. He was out for a long time, and somebody else stepped in.
It was Luke Walton
And won a chip. I mean, that doesn't happen unless everybody believes in the system.
Yeah, I mean the Luke Walton year was the year they went 73-9.
Yeah, they lost. Right, they lost.
But the thing is it's like, still to your point, Draymond, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, 3 guys that have been there for the most part. And of course, Andre Iguodala as well,
right.
A fourth guy. All of those guys have something in common with the exception of Andre Iguodala. Draymond was a 4-year player at Michigan State for Tom Izzo. And, you don't play for Tom Izzo if you don't know your ins and outs. Klay Thompson, 3-year player at Washington State. Steph Curry, 3-year player at Davidson. And the thing is, if you're a one and done guy, obviously you're not going to be there long enough to learn and understand a system that is being coached to you. So that stands for something. You think about Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr collegiately played for Lute Olson at Arizona. And
sure did.
And, Lute Olson had a solid system there. Okay, he had success being a role player with the Chicago Bulls and the San Antonio Spurs. And then you're an assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs under Greg Popovich. And then on top of that, Luke Walton, another guy, a 4-year guy at the University of Arizona under Lute Olson. And then on top of that, obviously, he had the opportunity to learn from his dad, Bill Walton. And then on top of that, you play for the Lakers under Phil Jackson. So, obviously, you get the opportunity to learn systems, and then you have an opportunity to implement that as well. Obviously, things didn't work out great for Luke Walton as a coach with the Los Angeles Lakers. I have my theories on that. Again, another topic for another day. And then obviously it didn't work out with the Sacramento Kings. But at the end of the day, how many people has it worked out for with the Sacramento Kings? But coming back full circle, Draymond is a smart basketball player, does some foolish stuff on the court from time to time. But at the end of the day, the Warriors, I think they're going to do right by him. It might not necessarily be a max deal per se, but I think he's going to get rewarded handsomely.
As he should, like we said at the top of the podcast, we ran down, all he's done. He's accomplished a lot in his career. And, for some of these guys, again, that I said got drafted and had all these expectations over the last few years, these guys, they can't hold a cup of water for him at this point in time. And these were the biggest stars coming out of college and from wherever they, a lot of people just didn't live up to it. Right. And, he worked hard and he earned his way. He didn't get put into the All-Star game because he was Klay and Steph's teammate. He earned it.
Right. So there you have it, folks. Those are our thoughts on the interesting Draymond Green scenario that is present with the Golden State Warriors. At the end of the day, I think cooler heads, I can't even say cooler heads, it's going to get taken care of,
I
because,
agree.
Joe Lacob and Peter Guber, they understand business. These are business minded people that have come into the NBA. And for that sake, we've seen the success that this franchise has had under this new ownership. As always, much love and much support, and much appreciated, to have Cal One, the
Thank you
God,
for having me. Appreciate it.
on this podcast, always, bringing a different aspect of, insight, especially from the basketball world. And it's Cal, as always, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, William. Appreciate it.
And that's going to wrap it up, folks. If you like what you saw and heard today, please feel free to hit the like and subscribe button for this channel. Also, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So for Cal One to God, my name is William Martin. I'm
Yes,
signing
sir.
off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.